All right, folks. As we get started, my name is Sandra Brighton Grossbitter. I am the Director of Training at the ILRU ILNet project, and my pronouns are she, her. For a visual description, I'm a Hispanic female. I'm in my home office. I have dark curly hair and wearing glasses and a black shirt. We are going to head and going to get started today. Your ASL interpreters should be at the top of your screen. We will have them pinned at all times, and captions are turned on. We have cart captioning, and you can also access them through the stream text link, which I will put in the chat in just a moment. In case that's an easier way for you to access the information. We do have the chat feature today, so feel free to put your questions or thoughts and ideas in the chat, and we'll go through them after today's presentation. So like I said, we are going to provide a short presentation and then move through some questions and answers. So the presenters for today will be myself and Jeremy Morris, who is the executive director, of the Ohio Silk. And he is also one of the ILNet technical assistant consultants. We also have Ed Ahern here with us today from the Office of Independent Living at ACL to go over some information for us on disaster planning. We are going to focus on several sections of this state plan, and those are the final sections. That's sections 7, 8, and 9, which seem like pretty easy sections, but they are super important with regards to what they guarantee and assure. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague here in just 1 second, but I want to make sure that you all have access to the basics state plan for independent living instructions and the instrument. This link, I'm going to pop it into the chat while Jeremy is presenting, and you can download the full document, and all of this information that we're presenting today is available there. All right, Jeremy, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Sandra. As Sandra said, my name is Jeremy. I am the director of the Silk here in Ohio. I am a mid-30s white male, brown hair, green shirt, and he, him pronouns. So, as Sandra said, this is a very important section, and it's one of the sections that you have to do the least amount of writing, at least, which is a nice part, but it's really important because these questions come up a lot when we talk about, the DSE's roles and responsibilities. So in this section is where your DSE director is going to end up signing things. So the initial part of this, you list out who that person is. So your DSE director or the representative, whoever it is that's head of that agency that will be signing the state plan, and that they're signing, acting on behalf of their DSE. So you insert the information about who the DSE is, their contact information, the address, phone number, email address, and then it actually lists out all of the DSE assurances. So this isn't the only time the DSE sees this. It's also part of that Part B grant notice of award that they receive. So the DSE is acknowledging their role on behalf of the state as the fiscal intermediary to receive, account for, and disperse funds received by the state to support independent living services based on the state plan. So what does that actually mean? Part of the things that they're agreeing to, they will assure that the agency keeps the appropriate records. And that's going to be according to any federal and state laws, and provide access to ACL upon request. They will not retain more than 5% of the funds received by the state for any year under Part B for administrative expenses. They will assure that the silk is established as an autonomous entity within the state. It's not letting me click to, okay. The DSE will, this is a very, very, very important one, and I stress this. The DSE will not interfere with the business or operations of the silk that include, but are not limited to, the expenditure of federal funds, the meeting schedules and agendas, the business of the silk board, voting actions of the board, personnel actions, allowable travel, and training. The DSE will also abide by the determination of whether or not the silk wants to utilize the staff of the DSE. If the silk informs the DSE that it wants to use staff, the DSE assures that the management of that staff regarding the functions performed for the silk are the sole responsibility of the silk. So the silk has the authority to oversee the duties of that staff person, if that is applicable. Next slide. The DSE will fully cooperate with the silk in the nomination and appointment process. So that is an important one for those states that may have some issues with the appointing process. The DSE here is agreeing that they will cooperate with the silk in the nomination process. They will not try and control that process. Sometimes it can be helpful. They may have stronger connections with staff in the governor's office. They can maybe get things done a little bit quicker to get contact with you. But they should be cooperating with you, not taking over and controlling that. The DSE shall make timely and prompt payments to Part B funded silks and sills. So anyone who is getting Part B funding in your state, they should be making prompt payment to you. And if not, here's the area where they are signing to agree to that. If they're using reimbursement, they must make payment within 30 calendar days after the receipt of billing, unless the pass-through agency reasonably believes the request is improper. So if they have issues with something that has been submitted, a proper invoice, depending on what the system is, but that 30 calendar days is very important. The DSE will advance payments of Part B funded Part B funded sills and silks to cover the estimated disbursement needs for an initial period, generally geared towards the mutually agreed upon dispersing cycle. So in your state, if you have centers and your silk that may have cash flow issues at the very beginning of the year, this is that area where you can talk to the DSE about, hey, we should be able to receive some advance payments if we can do this. Having this in that the federal regulations for them to follow gives you a lot of ability to help push that. The DSE will accept requests for advance payments and reimbursements at least monthly when electronic fund transfers are not used, and as often as necessary when electronic fund transfers are used. So that's talking about your timeline of how you're going to get paid. So the end of this section is again the statement that is right above where the DSE director is going to sign. And it's telling that person that by signing it, they are indicating that the entity or agency's agreement to serve and fulfill their role as the DSE, that they affirm that the state will comply with the assurances during the 3-year period of the SPIL, and develop with the silk and ensure that the silk resource plan is necessary and sufficient. We talked about that a little bit when we talked about section 5 about the necessary and sufficient resources to the silk. Here again, the DSE is signing, saying that they are going to assure that the silk has necessary and sufficient resources. And that is to fulfill your statutory duties and your authorities under Section 705C of the Act. And then the DSE director signs it. And there is a note that electronic signatures may be used for the purposes of submission, but hard copy signatures must be kept on file. And with that, I will pass it off back to Sandra.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy. So again, this is a lot of words on the screen, a lot of things to look at and remember. But I think the key thing is that the DSE assurances section and this next section on silk assurances and indicators should not be surprises to anyone. It should not be a surprise to anyone who is involved in this process. So for the DSE portion, not only are they signing it as part of the state plan, but they also, those assurances are included typically on the notice of award when funds go out to the state. So for the silk assurances and indicators, really want to make sure that folks understand what the silk is responsible for and what they're saying that they are going to do. So pretty basic. We start off with saying the silk chairperson, because as you may recall, the silk chair is the one that's actually going to sign this document on behalf of the silk. And so one of the things, it's going to walk down in order, and it's going to have several numbered sections. But one is that the silk is regularly, basically they define regularly as not less than one time a year, providing the appointing authority recommendations for your council. That means regular communication. If it's your governor's office, et cetera, if you have staff, that means they need to be communicating. If you don't, then typically the silk chair will work on this with the silk and make sure that this compliance is adhered to. It also is an assurance saying that your silk has the composition and the members that are required in the Rehab Act, and that their terms, their appointment terms, adhere to the Rehab Act, and that it's not established as an entity within a state agency. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. Just one second. So again, this as we continue the assurances, it's saying the silk will make the decision on whether or not it would like to utilize DSE staff to carry out the functions of the silk. And hold on one second, and that they get a choice. When it comes to the DSE staff, they can manage them, they have the responsibility for them, and make sure that those firewalls are in place. In addition, the silk is assuring that all of the program activities are accessible to people with disabilities, and that the state plan, which is the document that this is included in, will provide those assurances that the DSE and any other agency or office will not interfere with operations of the silk. The silk will actively consult with underserved and unserved populations in urban and rural areas, indigenous population and indigenous populations as appropriate in your plan. And as authorized in the Rehab Act. So when we go to section 8.2, and I apologize, it looks like the slide ran a little bit. There's indicators of minimum compliance. which basically says that this next section are what we called indicators. And starting with number 1, where you're saying, hey, your silk, whether or not it's a 501c3 or not, must have written policies and procedures, and they must include these things. And it provides a list of those things, a method for recruiting members, reviewing those applications, and providing recommendations to the appointing office, a method for identifying and resolving disputes and conflicts of interest, a process of holding public meetings and meeting regularly, and a process and a timeline for providing advance notice for those meetings. This must also include a process and a timeline for advance notice of silk executive session meetings that are closed to the public. And it goes into a little bit more detail saying that executive sessions, which are closed to the public, should be rare, and it would be only in the case to conduct confidential silk business, like personnel issues or something like that. And the agenda must be made available to the public, although you don't have to put identifying details as part of that agenda. There also needs to be a process and a timeline for the public to request reasonable accommodations, and a method for developing, seeking, and incorporating public input into monitoring, reviewing, and evaluating the implementation of the state plan. Again, that's the core foundation of the silk responsibilities. And a process to verify centers for independent living are eligible to sign the state plan in compliance with the Rehab Act. The silk is going to remain maintain, regular communication with the appointing authority, which they've now restated that, I think, 3 times. So I think they're trying to say it's really important. And that the silk will maintain individual training plans for members that adhere to the silk training and Technical Assistance Center's silk training curriculum, which we have lots of information on our website. It also, a key part of these indicators is saying that the silk will receive input into the development of the state plan, and it'll go through a little bit more detail about what should be included as part of this process, but that there is a documented process of how you will work on developing the SPIL, and how you will gather input, how you will work with the centers, and how you're doing outreach to people with disabilities throughout the states. And that plan should include the process for how you're collecting information. In addition, there is a reminder here and language stating that all meetings regarding the state plan development and review are open to the public and provides advance notice of those meetings. The meetings seeking public input provide the advance notice in accordance to state and federal laws, and that all the public meeting locations where you're getting public input about the state plan need to be accessible to people with disabilities. So we're talking about proximity to public transportation, physical accessibility, effective communication, and making sure there are accommodations in place. In addition, when we're talking about digital materials, making sure that they are Section 508 compliant and that they're available upon request in alternative formats and in other commonly spoken languages. The indicators also restate that the silk monitors and evaluates the state plan, and that they will go through a process of identifying any potential changes needed due to things in your state law, your organization, the operations, or pretty much anything that will affect the administration of the SPIL, or the funding. And there's guidance in other documents about the amendment process. One of the key assurances and indicators includes the state plan's resource plan, which includes a restatement that there should be sufficient funds from Part B funds and from innovation and expansion or other resources. And that those funds really need to cover the following things, and it lists out saying specifically staff and personnel, operations, the council's meeting expenses, the accommodations process, resources on training and conferences to staff, etc. And this is very important, just showing the baseline of what's expected for a silk to be able to operate. And then it's pretty easy. The silk chair will sign, and the same stipulation as required for the DSC signature is that that they can do an electronic signature for the process of submission, but a hard copy has to remain on file at the silk. So that will be a process in which your silk or staff will do in order to have a full hard copy wet signature. Speaking of signatures, in section 9, this is basically the final assurance saying, hey, the silk chair is listed below. At least 51% of the directors of the Centers for Independent Living are here. This is complete, it's ready to go, it's ready to be submitted. And then what I did not put on this slide, but what is included is just a full list of the centers and or the centers that are agreeing to sign, and then their names and the date of their signature. So we're done with this section, and I would like, if Ed is here, to go ahead and go over a little bit of an overview of the frequently asked questions document that was recently released by ACL.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Ed Ahern here, Office of Independent Living Programs at ACL. So we're really excited about this this frequently asked questions. When I joined ACL last year, a year and a half ago, I came from being 7 years as a disability specialist at FEMA. So disaster was something that was really, I saw the disparity in people with disabilities across the country. I was deployed for 2 years straight. So when I came into ACL, they were already working on this document. In the meantime, there were some really big disasters that centers were very involved with. And so lots of questions were coming out of that. So what we've done is compiled information on a broad range of subjects. Some people have been in the disability arena for years, some centers and silks, while others have not quite gotten there. As you know, disaster it picks who it wants to, and areas where we didn't think we had disasters before we do. And when I talk about disaster, we're not only talking about things like big hurricanes or wildfires. We're also, and this was a message that I got from many of the centers that I spoke with, there are small impactful disasters at the local level, school shootings, dam breaches. So things that may not rise to this huge level, and nonetheless centers or people with disabilities are impacted by this. So we got a lot of feedback, I think, from people in the field that were working on this. We tried to answer a lot of the questions. We sent it through to our policy people. And as a result, we have come up with this understanding the role of independent living network before, during, and after. And it does, again, as it says, if it's your first time, how do you start? Gives you direction, kind of some guidance, some tools. It also has some information on silks and the role that the SPIL plays in disaster. We have reviewed many of state plans, and many state plans do include information on disaster, although most of them in many cases seem to be focused on preparation. So ACL has a really strong commitment across ACL around disaster and supporting our grantees. So we've been doing a lot of internal work, how we triage, how do we assist our grantees immediately. So this is one of the tools that we have offered. If you're going to be at the Silk Congress next week, I'm going to be presenting specifically on SPIL goals with Herman and Shaylin from the Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies, who are also on this call today. And it will identify some small things you can do and large things if you're really looking to take it to the next level. In addition, with ILRU, I think on the 27th of this month, we're also doing a webinar for the IL network. We're going to have both SILs and SILKs talk about their experiences as well. So glad to answer any questions. If you've had a chance to review this, what we want you to know is that ACL is here to support you. So every disaster and every center are unique. So we want to tailor that support to you in a way that meets your needs. But we think that this FAQ really does cover a nice broad range of topics. And I'll stop there. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Oops. Sorry about that. That sounds perfect. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then we can open it up for questions. Just one second.